Hello and welcome to a episode of the Euro vlog for November 2022. Small disclaimer, this video may well contain triggers as we do talk about suicide, anxiety, depression, as well as things like substance abuse and a range of mental health difficulties that people face every day. So please, if you do go into this, do just be aware and make sure you look after yourself before and after, especially if that means talking to someone else and getting their support. Now, onto the vlog. Hello guys and welcome back to another episode of You're Right, the mental health vlog for November 2022. I am lucky today to be joined by Chris and Premal from Directions for Men. Now I'm going to hand over to them immediately as per the normal and let them tell us a little bit about the organisation really. So over to Chris.
So thanks, Ryan. So I'm Chris. I'm the founder of Directions for Men. We were founded in 2019 in September. And essentially there was three reasons why I wanted to set up a group or an organisation like Directions for Men. One professional and two personal. So the professional reason is that over the last kind of 18 years, I've worked in drug and alcohol services in the criminal justice system, seen lots and lots of men, obviously, in both of those types of services. Vast majority of people that you see are men. Almost all of those men have either an underlying mental health problem, a mental illness, or primarily they've just never been shown how to solve problems effectively without resorting to drink, drugs, aggression, and violence and those kind of things. And it always kind of struck me that we needed to do something more for men that try to stop them getting to that stage where they find themselves in front of a judge or in front of a drugs worker or an alcohol worker. So that was my first reasoning behind setting up something like Directions for Men. The other two reasons are both personal reasons to me. So I've struggled with anxiety since about 2009. It was particularly bad. It got to a stage where I was doing things like calling ambulances for myself because I thought I was having heart attacks and all that kind of thing. And when I finally put up the courage to go to the doctor, the options were quite stark. So either you can take medication and that will make you feel better straight away, or you can wait 2 years for therapy. So obviously I took the medication. I took that for about 2 months. Didn't particularly work for me. Didn't really see any change or difference in the symptoms that I was experiencing. So I stopped taking the medication. And by that time, really, I think I probably felt a little bit embarrassed to go back to the GP. And I thought, the only option available left to me is to wait 2 years anyway. So what's the point in that? And I think if there'd have been a third option, and that option could have been, or you can go and see these guys that might understand what you're going through, might have been there themselves, might be able to tell you how they've overcome some of their difficulties. It might have meant that it didn't take me 10 years to kind of get my anxiety under control into where it is now, where I can do things like this without being too nervous. The third reason is always the most important. And that is that in January 2019, I lost a family member to suicide. And that family member was my cousin, John Paul. He was exactly the same age as me. And he was a bit more than just a cousin, really. So when I was a child, my mum had lots of mental illness, mental health problems and problems with drugs and alcohol. And would quite often go and spend time in hospitals trying to get treatment for some of those things. And when that had happened, I'd normally go into care or I'd be cared for by family members. And quite often, the family members that would look after me would be me, Auntie Rita and my Uncle Jed, who were John Paul's mum and dad. So I spent quite a lot of time living with him as a child. And I suppose when he took his own life, I felt massively guilty that I'd spent all these years trying to help all these strangers. And actually the one person that I should have been there for and should have seen, I wasn't. Now, obviously in retrospect, if I'd have known what he was going to do, I sat with him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to stop it. And you can't often spot when people are feeling like John Paul felt, unfortunately. But I think probably Directions for Men is me trying to do something positive with those feelings of guilt and shame that I had, and sometimes still experience, even though now I know, some of the challenges around suicide and some of the difficulties spotting issues that people are facing that leads them to take their own life. So that's me, that's Directions for Men. And essentially what we try and do is provide spaces where men can talk. And I think it's probably a good time for me to hand over to Premal now, isn't it? And let him speak for a couple of minutes.
Cheers, Chris. So in the way our groups are set up is you don't have to make any bookings. You don't have to make any appointments. You don't need any referrals from the NHS or anyone else that you might be speaking to. It's purely drop-in. As long as you're 18 and over, you can just come to one of our venues and join us. It's kind of, we sit in a circle. We try and keep all barriers between each other out of the way, and you're there just to it's pretty much a free for all to talk about whatever you want. We only have 4 rules, and that's kind of be honest with yourself, don't judge each other, be compassionate to one another, and everything stays confidential unless it goes into safeguarding measures. Then we have to take it forward, but that's really it. And everyone's fine with those rules, and yeah, we just have conversations. They can start wherever they want. They can talk about anything. It could be something major. It could be something like, I've just had a really bad day. And the thing I really like about our groups is that some blokes, or quite a lot of the blokes, they come in and they're quite tense, and they'll come in with the shoulders up, quite arms folded, legs crossed. You can sometimes you can see the jaw muscles so tight because they clench the jaw because they don't want to speak, and you can just see the anxiety and the kind of the nervousness about it. But once someone starts speaking, you can see them slowly melt down and start relaxing. Like, they might not be the first to speak. What in my personal group, because I'm a facilitator for Bolton, we'll normally do check-ins with the guys who have been coming regularly, and that's just to give any of the new guys a chance to see how things actually work, because nearly everyone who comes in will have no idea what to do or how things work. I normally describe it, if I'm on the phone to anyone inquiring about it, I normally describe it as meeting people in a cafe that you've never met and just having a chat with them. Because we do provide brews and stuff where it's possible, and yeah, it works. People will start listening to each other, and then you get that feeling of when you're listening to someone where you don't know how to express yourself, but then you start thinking, yeah, that's me. That's exactly me. And then that's when people start feeling more relaxed. And that's when people feel more confident to speak. And in my group, there have been some guys who've been there for about 3 weeks since they found us, and they haven't said anything because they're not ready to, or they're not confident enough to. But just listening to other people's stories, it starts to break those walls down and those barriers. And yeah, so my guys most of them have started talking about the problems, and they've said themselves it actually helps them. It actually helps to relieve it, because it might be something that they have never talked about before, or they don't know how to talk about it. And like, if you look around the room, you can tell they're nervous. Apart from like the body language, they're always like playing. One of my guys just playing a lot with his wedding ring. I could kind of say like, yeah, I know what's the matter with you, but I was waiting for him to talk about it, and I just like foot tapping, and you see a lot of that going on. Don't you, Chris? Is that the kind of thing you see as well, Chris?
So you get a lot of guys you get guys that come and kind of divulge the whole life story the first time they're there.
Yes, yeah.
and take up quite a lot of time, because they're so keen and eager to try and get it all out, and you do visibly see the shoulders lift, and kind of the weight of the world coming off them a little bit. You also get guys that sit in the corner and fold their arms for 6 weeks and don't say anything, but that's okay, and it's okay for a couple of reasons. It is firstly because we don't shine spotlights on people. If you don't want to talk, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to talk. But secondly, if he's sat there and listening, he will be resonating with things that are being said in that room, and at least understanding that he's not on his own. And secondly, by him being there and listening, he's giving the other men an opportunity to be listened to and to speak as well. So even if you're not actually talking, you're still contributing to our sessions, because you're providing that forum for that man to feel safe and share what he's talking about. And I tell you, Ryan, one of the most important things that come out of our groups is friendships and laughter. You know, I always surprises me how much kind of laughter you hear in our sessions, and that people do swap numbers and become great mates. So even if they're not in a Directions for Men group, you know, and it's a Saturday morning, they're having a bad day, they do get people that they can text and say, "I'm having a tough day today, mate." And we've had lads going off and doing all sorts together because of that. So the friendships that they create are incredibly important. It helps those guys who are lonely. It gives them that space where they can talk openly about the challenges that they're facing, and knowing that the other fellas in that room aren't going to judge them, or, you know, take the mickey out of them, or, you know, think that they're less of a man. And they do kind of get genuine friendships out of it. You know, so I think it's the hardest thing to do, Prem, isn't it? You get men in a room talking about their emotions. And we could probably get 3 times the numbers if we did a football session or a boxing session or some other kind of sport related session. But for me, you can't beat talking, you know, and we've got to encourage more men to go and talk or listen, whatever they want to do. But I kind of stick to my guns on that, Ryan, is that, you know, we are primarily a talking organisation, and we'll build the activities after we've got men talking, really.
Yeah. And I think
go on.
Sorry, go on, Ryan.
That's right, go on.
I was going to say the thing that follows on with that is the guys that are there early on, the guys who've been there for a while, they choose to come back. And one of the reasons I think is because we're breaking down these barriers and they're making these connections, because in society these days, people don't communicate face to face usually. So either over WhatsApp or Facebook, isn't it? Most of the time, even myself. But yeah, these guys are making connections, and the guys that are there who've been there longer and have talked all their problems out to the point where you can just talk rubbish, almost just talk about nonsense with the group. It's these guys that stay, and then they want to be there for the next lot of newcomers who've got problems. It's kind of, there's this whole sense of paying it forward, as I like to look at it, because they all want to be there to support the next group of people. And I've seen that. I'd say maybe I'm on that comes to my group recently, and yeah, I just like that feeling of like people like to pay it forward. And it's really good to see that in action.
I think you guys definitely, the organisation of the group, however you want to, go and describe it, definitely fulfills a void. I was very lucky that when I was younger, I had male friends that I broke the boundary with them very early on. I was like, this is what's going on in my life. And I'm very lucky they responded with, oh, I've been through similar, oh, I'm going through similar, oh, I understand you, oh, I'm happy to talk about it. But not every man has that. It's very, very rare that, I'll say it's rare, it's getting less rare as time goes on, but it's very unusual that a bloke will be able to go to his mates down at the pub, listen, lads, I've had an absolute terrible day. And the lads all come with something like, well, you get that pint down you then, and well, we'll have a good one. It's very rare they get to the talking stage where you guys not only facilitate it, but by natural turn of event, actively encourage it. And that's not like prompting other people, not inside that sense, but by being there, having people listen, having people that just sit around and then listen, having loads of people talking about it, really must make a comfortable environment for those people that need to talk but don't feel like they've got the ground to yet.
I think a lot of the guys say how much easier it is to talk to strangers. To be honest, that's one of the things that I think encourage them to open up, because they're talking to people that've got no idea about their background, their history, and things that they've been through. There's not really any connection to them, so they find it quite easy. And I do say, every man that walks through our door gets 3 things. He gets a warm welcome, a handshake. Well, maybe not a handshake in kind of these current times, but it used to be a handshake. Maybe it's touching elbows now, and the offer of a brew. To try and make guys feel really comfortable and make it easy for them to talk, and almost like it is a group of mates down the pub talking. But that's what we've got to get to, right? We've got to get to the time when every man can share the difficulties that he's going through with his mates, and those mates can respond with empathy and compassion and care and understanding. You know, I'm probably the same as you and Premal. Every time I speak to a man about challenges that I've had, I can guarantee that he'll tell me about a challenge that he's had, every single man that I speak to, without question. So we're all going through it. We're all struggling. It's just being brave enough to kind of take that first step and share and talk about it. And it does make a difference.
I think also you guys are, as you know, because correct me if I'm wrong, but there are like several hubs across a location there. It's all around Manchester, if I'm correct.
Greater Manchester and Cheshire mainly, and then we've got online groups as well. Obviously, people from anywhere can join us too.
There you go. So, you know, but I think that's as well. You guys are forming this. You know, there's people in different cities potentially. You know, there's blokes in different cities sitting there listening to people cross country, listening to these experiences, forming this form of community that, you know, that a lot of men have. You know, I mean, we all have community. We have our neighbours, you have your mates, you have your colleagues. If you work, you have people you met online, you have, you know, your PlayStation, your Xbox friends, whoever they are. But you guys are creating a community where the idea of talking is at the forefront. It's not like, you know, you go to a lot of places. I say to a lot of places, sorry, like you have a lot of communities where talking isn't even at the forefront. There's so much other things to do. Whereby you guys just having we're here to talk means that when people come in, they know what to expect. They know what they're about to listen to or do, which I absolutely love of a prospect.
Yeah, you're right. And I've go on, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, it's like it's the most important aspect of what we do. You know, it's like I said, right, it'd be really easy to kind of compromise our values a little bit to increase numbers and chase numbers rather than giving men that quality space to talk. But for me, what we do is too important for that. We can't compromise that we are a talking organisation and we're creating spaces for men to talk because men need it. You know, we know that men need it because, you know, they can go and play football wherever they want. But one man every 2 hours is still taking his own life. So we know that talking is necessary, and we will stick to the fact that we are a talking organisation. Sorry about that. Even though it means that there might not be as many men that come to our sessions, that's okay. That's okay. We won't be for all men, but the men that come hopefully get something that really makes a difference to them.
Did you have something earlier, Premal, that you were going to say before the little clashing of Zoom walls?
What was I going to say? I can't remember. It might come back to me. No, it's gone.
It's gone.
Sorry.
Could you give me an insight into the online chat sessions? Because, of course, this could be potentially you lovely people watching this when you watch it. Could be from literally anywhere. So could you give me just a bit of insight into the online sessions?
Yeah. So it's by invite only. So we don't share the Zoom details far and wide. You've kind of got to register with us to be sent the link. Again, completely free to join. The emphasis is the same. You know, make yourself comfortable, grab a brew, sit down, have your camera on if you want. Don't have your camera on if you don't want. Talk if you want. Don't talk if you don't want to. There'll be a group of guys that are online every Friday at 7:00. And it works exactly the same as our face-to-face groups. It's an opportunity for you to talk and be listened to by other men who will understand your experiences and has been there themselves. So exactly the same format. Obviously, the great advantage with doing online sessions is that people can join from anywhere. So we've had people from all over the country join us, you know, and as far afield as New York, I think, on one occasion as well. So exactly the same format. Yeah. But that's the real benefit of online, isn't it? Is people can come from anywhere. But hopefully you get the same experience as you would do in a face-to-face group.
Wonderful. What I'll do is, gents, to round all this off, I have one final question for you, which is, if you could say, if all of this, if this goes out there and all the people out there that watch this, if you could ask them to take away one thing from this vlog, what would you like them to take away from it?
Wow.
Yeah, I know, difficult question. I'm good at these curveballs.
I would say the ask twice principle is that although our talking groups exist for people to come to, they may not be close people might not be near any of our venues, but if they want to speak to their friends, you got your baseline conversations where you go, "You're right, mate." It's like, "Yeah, I'm all right, you." So you get out of the way, and then maybe a few minutes later or a bit later, like, just ask them again, like, "Are you really okay?" And just doing that twice just kind of takes you back a bit, and you think, actually, no, I'm not. Then you might be able to ask if you want to chat or something. Just arrange a little chat between two people.
I like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's something that we do encourage, is to ask people twice. Get past the superficial conversation, let's call it, and then ask them again. So yeah, I'd say that's quite an important thing and an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
absolutely. Really simple and straightforward thing to do, but asking that second time, it does jolt you out a little bit and make you think, actually, no, I'm not. So I am. So yeah, it's a great one, that, Prem. I suppose for me, Ryan, what I would always say is, you might not be struggling at the moment, but there might be a man that you know that is. So please just share details of men's groups and men's sessions, whether they're in your local area or whether online. Encourage men to seek help, to reach out, to speak to people, because it's the only way we're going to have an impact on the tragedy of men struggling and men taking their own lives. So share the details of groups, whether you're struggling or not. There will be a man that you know that is having a tough time.
Thank you very much, guys, both Premal and Chris, for joining me today. Anyone that's watching this, if you do feel like you need to talk, there are charities all across the UK, and there are also Samaritans you can pick up your phone to and call. But I will put the link for Directions Men below if you do want to look in closer to it. Maybe you do live around the Manchester area. Maybe the online session is something that might interest you. Please do look out for the link, and then you can look at that. Thank you both for joining me on this, and I will see the rest of you tomorrow. So apart from that, have an absolutely smashing day and have a good one. Thank you for watching that Euro vlog. It's been a phenomenal journey that we've been on to get this far, and we're hoping that it will long outlive the vlog series. But it's not over there. There is more to be done, and there is a donation link to the Movember charity inside the description. If you can donate, please do consider it, or even if you can just spread that link far and wide, get as many people to donate as possible, that's also fantastic. We are actively making a change, and you're part of that. So thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.